One. All right. Welcome back, everyone. We took a pause from recording for a bit, and we're just talking about the uniqueness of this medium that we're pioneering here. And I was trying to find a name for it or a descriptor for it earlier, and I started with ultra long form, right? Ultra long format, right? Because there's long format meetings, maybe, I don't know, 2 hours plus. We're like 10 times that. This is ultra long format. Exactly. And among other things, those of us who choose to participate for long stretches of time, cheers. Those of us who do, we end up just like really communing, right, with each other. And because we have plenty of time, we can go down various different tangents and look at it from different angles. And I mean, we ain't going nowhere. So I mean, there's that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect that we create this giant net to catch and create a home for, a space for folks who want to pop in at various different times, any time really during the 24-hour period. So it's creating a bit of a a community center, a virtual community center for collective intelligence. And especially when combined with the Solution Club on Tuesdays, which are typically going about 8 hours. The last couple went for about 8 hours each. This community center is open 32 hours per week, right? That's almost, full time, right? A business that's, say, open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, that's 40 hours a week. Well, we're almost there. And then there's, of course, the uniqueness of the stand that we're taking and the approach that we're taking, which is that collective superintelligence is now so close. It's so much closer than when we started this on February 14th this year, right? It is so much closer because everyone's on video conference and because everyone is dialed into the world's problems right now. Right? 2 months ago, there were still people saying, what problem? Everything's great. Right? And no one's saying that anymore. No one. And so take that combination of everybody at home, grounded, everybody on video conference, everybody knowing that there's problems, and so many people are participating in these Zoom video conferences. Fine, ours may be super cutting edge and what have you, great. But all the others are not, among the others, there's a whole bunch that are pretty much right there with us in terms of how radical this is and how big thinking and open it is, et cetera. I'm sure there's a bunch of others. We need to find those and essentially create a network of conversations, a network of radical conversations, or as we say with the term snack bar, a social network of actual conversations where we actually root down and talk about things that matter. So anyway, that's my 2 cents as to just how unique and powerful this whole thing is and what an important thing it is for the world. And but at the same time, it's like it's kind of like we're swimming in this giant swimming pool at night with no lights, and we know other people are in the pool, and from time to time we make contact, right? What we need to do is turn on the lights so that we can see all the other radical conversations and groups and clusters that are out there, right? And it was kind of like when I stepped into a leadership role for for the fledgling cannabis industry, the nascent legal cannabis industry back in 2012. There were a whole bunch of players all over the place, that was for sure. But it was all hush hush down low. And the vast majority of the players knew only a few of the other players, right? Because it was illegal, right? And I came out and did something very public. I said, hey, this is going legal. We're going to build the biggest brand in the industry, right? And so suddenly the industry had a leader. And a friend of mine, kind of a philosopher, writer, said, Jamin, the best way to lead a parade is to find a parade and walk in front of it. That was true in the cannabis days of what we did, and I believe it's true here as well. There are a whole bunch of powerful conversations happening, but it's not in an organized parade. We want to organize it into a parade. And I think the best way of doing that is to actually, well, this is a whole conversation, but one of the ways to do that is to search out and discover these other conversations that are happening, that are as radical and transformational as this one, or at least in the same ballpark. And, essentially create a list or a directory of such conversations, roughly organized by topic, right? And then we can start cross-pollinating and checking out each other's meetings, and and really forming an actual network, a connected network. And then over time, the mission is to make those connections grow and get richer and richer and more nimbly connected, so that we can just be alerted whenever conversations pop up that we want to be in, pop right in, participate, contribute, and move along at the appropriate time to the next conversation, right? And we just build out this whole network like we've been talking about the last several weeks, but now it just feels like we're so much closer, and we have a very clear pathway, I would say. I mean, it's so clear, right? And just to make a little editor's note on everything I'm saying, is this all caught all of us by a huge surprise. We had in our wildest dreams, we weren't imagining so many people just jumping into Zoom video conferences and talking with each other about things that matter, like this. So it's totally caught us by surprise. And so, I mean, for me, this has all happened over the course of the last 3.5 days since the Solution Club on Tuesday. I started out the Solution Club being frustrated. Why is this taking so long? Because I was just thinking in terms of us growing out this network organically, right? Until I realized, oh my goodness, over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, the network has just, the network of conversations, the not very well networked network of conversations, or the set, it's really more of a set than a network, like in set theory, like in mathematics, right? It's like saying the set of all stars in the universe, right? They don't necessarily know about each other. I mean, they may not know about anything at all, but it's just a set. It's not like it's hyper-connected. They're just a set. So likewise, it's kind of like we're in this big galaxy or universe, and there's just these conversations that are totally separate from each other, like stars in the universe, right? And so, and our job is to connect them all into a network. And the first step in that job, I would say, is to round up the most powerful and the most open, the most public, the most kind of the biggest of those conversations, as well as a bunch of the others as well. I mean, if we find a cool conversation, we're not going to say, well, is this big enough for, no. It's like, is it radical? Is it open? Is it public? And, does it essentially have the right stuff? We don't even have a definition for what the right stuff is, but it doesn't matter, right? It's more something, it's like, it's kind of like what one politician said years ago about pornography when they're trying to create a law around pornography. He says, listen, I can't define pornography for you, but I know it when I see it, right? We can't define cool conversations with cool groups that are radical and there's no strict, just simple definition for it, but we know it when we see it. We know when we see it, all right? So what occurs to me actually is that what we could do is go around identifying candidate conversations that look like they might be cool. I'm just using the word cool as a placeholder, right? Cool, radical, whatever. And then, we make that list, and then people can volunteer to go check out a given conversation. Shankar might say, oh, here, I'm going to go check out these two conversations, and then I'll report back, right? I'll say, okay, I'm going to check out these two. Nolan says, I'll check out these two, whichever ones call out to us, right? And that's a pretty individual thing. And then we report back and say, all right, of all these 20 conversations that we went and checked out, these 12, make the cut. So they're in. So let's put them on the list, right? Let's put them on the snack bar if we choose snack bar to be the place. The social network of actual conversations, which is really kind of like two networks overlaid, right? If this hand is one network and this hand is another, it's kind of like they're overlaid in a way. One is a network of conversations, and another is a network of people participating in those conversations, right? So it's kind of like two networks in one. And for that matter, you could add a third network being the network of topics, right? Because the conversation, a given conversation might map to 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 different topics, right? And a network of topics is a taxonomy, right? Or it could be cast as a taxonomy. Why not? Anyway, so you got topics, conversations, people, right?
Imre's typed saying too many conversations are commercialized, unfortunately.
Yeah, so see a commercialized conversation would not make the cut, right? Somebody does a Zoom video conference. I see you got your hand up, Emery. I'll pass you the baton in a sec. But, if somebody does, I'm going to do a video conference, educating people about whatever. But it turns out they're really just trying to sell you something, right? That's an agenda. Go ahead, Nolan. And Emery, did you have your hand up? But anyway, go ahead, Nolan.
I just wanted to say, Jamin, you passed the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to need another $20 if you want to continue talking.
Yeah, sure. Here, let me see if I've got my checkbook here. Whoops, what happened there?
I'll take it.
That's too funny. That's too funny, guys. But that's what I was gonna say is the commercial, the commercialized end of it. the part that even Cesare, you know, he's admitted to having that as one aspect of his concerns to you know, with the future of you know, the progress of his platform that he's set up. You know, to some degree there will be some commercialization to it, just to be, you know, to allow and facilitate the progress that goes on, right? You may need to put food on your table, right? If you're devoting all your time and all your energies to establish the project, right? You know, you're gonna have to have some kind of means of support for what your needs are, your immediate needs. So I don't belittle the, you know, a lot of people for, you know, plugging this or plugging that thing. You know, they got a cup to sell or a T-shirt or whatever, you know, uh, or something to just help with the bills, right? We're not all what's you know, have the big inheritance or something, you know, and have lots of money to allow us to do what we just anything that we want, right? So it's okay to a certain degree, but you know, when people start flagging it every 5 minutes, every 10 minutes, you know, that's when it becomes a, you know, to a large extent a nuisance, right? And you know, as the culture has proceeded, you know, we're constantly used to be bombarded with commercials, but not so much in the day, back in the day. But now, any opportunity, any moment that they can get something in there, they're going to, right? And when we do that, you know, as individuals, because we have our platforms now, we're able to have a voice. And we start doing the same thing and start start with the commercials. It becomes an irritant to a large extent. But some people do it in a nice way, you know, I have to admit.
Well, you know, I mean, the way I see money is that fundamentally it needs to disappear as we know of it today. Money, property, ownership, dominion, and all that. And, you know, and, you know, and I see us doing just a radical phase transformation to a whole new paradigm where humanity as a whole is taking care of the basic needs of humanity as a whole, right? Nutritious vegan foods, shelter, healthcare, access to libraries and parks and recreation and stuff like that. Basic stuff that really doesn't cost that much, right? And then I imagine that, you know, these just become basic human rights. And then if somebody volunteers and does a bunch of great stuff and is out there working and helping people and working on projects and just working a lot, whatever that is, you know, it could be that their reward for doing more than the average person is some combination of the satisfaction of doing the right thing and helping out, and also, for lack of a better word, social points, right? Social currency, right? Because I mean, think about when we were, you know, when we were tribes of people, when we were groups of, you know, 100 or 120 of us or whatever, making our way through the jungles and the forests and the savannas, right? Nobody owned any land. Nobody owned anything. right? And yet we did beautifully, right? We lived sustainably in harmony, right? We were a part of nature. And so I don't think that owning stuff, owning land, owning animals, owning people, owning vehicles, I don't think that's a human need at all. I think we've adapted to this totally screwed up mode of production that just sort of crept in with the agricultural revolution 10, 12,000 years ago. It kind of crept in, at first when we were, small groups of humans and there were only 10 million of us on the planet, you know, we'd start doing some gardening here and some gardening there. And, it was no big deal. It was kind of casual. It was supplementing our hunting and gathering out there, right? Closer to home, we'd do some gardening. Okay, whatever. But nobody owned it. There was no like, oh, this is mine. No, it was just like, this is just part of what we did, right? As a community of humans. But when the agricultural revolution really started growing and we started raising more and more and more crops, and people started having more and more and more children, and then people started having this idea that, you know what, I need to fence off my land so I can feed my children. And that's when we took a bite of that proverbial poison apple and left the garden and entered the realm of capitalism. That's how I see it. Yeah, Nolan. Mm-hmm.
I'm just curious, or want to introduce a question into the space now, which is, how do we continue to have the success, capitalism, for example? I guess what I'm asking is, how can we take the best parts of that, which, as I'm listening to you, Jamin, the thought that's popping into my head is, okay, well, you could think of ownership as from the standpoint of considering responsibility, where it's like, let's say, there's something that needs to get done, right? And so if somebody owns it and it's theirs, then, basically they're not expecting somebody else to take care of whatever it is. And then if a bunch of people do that, then everyone is, if everyone has their responsibility, so I don't know exactly how to form my question. I definitely see a need for, like, I mean, there's the social incentive you're talking about for whatever it is you're doing, or just for yourself knowing that it's the right thing and feeling good about having done that. And I guess I'm trying to I think what I'm trying to do right now is kind of piece together, maybe the best way of putting it is like universal basic income and like democratized, well, I don't know if you'd call that capitalism anymore. It's socialism, I guess.
Well, the thing is, even if you have a high tax rate, right? If the name of the game is still hoarding at the end of the day, okay, fine, I got to pay a bunch of taxes. Well, let me make, $10 million instead of $5 million, so I can at the end of the year net out, you know, a few million ahead, even after paying high taxes. If the name of the game is still hoarding, you're still going to end up with a class of Jeff Bezos's and Bill Gates, who, you know, own the lion's share. I mean, you know, look at the wealthiest 1% or something that owns like 50% of the world's wealth. I forget exactly what the ratio is, but it's just extremely contorted. And you know, but the thing is, we're like, we were all born into a world where we were taught that, hey, if you study hard and learn a bunch and then get a good job and then maybe start your own business, you could be a multimillionaire, and then you wouldn't have to work anymore and you can just sit on your stash. And, you know, a lot of folks started doing that, and then it just went out of control. Because the thing is, when your metric is money, right? And you look at your property and you say, my goodness, I've got all these hardwood trees. They're not generating any money for me, but if I chop them all down, woo, I'll have money, right? So if we set up a game where the objective is hoarding as much money as you can, we're going to end up with the world we've got, an absolute mess, right? So it's, and I granted, it's hard. It's hard to imagine a different kind of world working, because this is the only kind of world we know. All right. I mean, so when I've thought about, you know, gee, how could it be different? How could it be different? It really only, a different world really only makes sense to me in the context of a radical transformation where we just make the phase shift from, hey, I'm Jamin Shively, the individual, and I want to aggrandize myself, to, hey, I'm part of this beautiful Mother Earth with all of her children, and we're all one beautiful family. What can I do for the benefit of the whole, right? Anyway, I don't have a clean answer, because it feels like we're only going to get there once we've really made this spiritual transformation. But also I think we can make this, I think doing the things that we're doing facilitate this spiritual transformation. Collective superintelligence facilitates it. It's kind of like the medium or the vehicle for this transformation. And I've got other thoughts, but anyway, Melissa, you've got your hand up. Go ahead, sweetheart.
Hello. I just wanted to say that in America, that's the model we know. But in other countries, there have been and are different models around ownership and community and lifestyle. So I think it's interesting to explore other cultures and how they're living. And a lot of what Mike was talking about is actually ancient technology. It's not a new technology. And if you look at vernacular architecture, like even in some European countries, I'm sure in Ireland, houses are made of sod. In Spain, their houses made of natural materials. The Egyptian architect who was very active in the 70s and 80s, Hassan Fatih, I mentioned his name in the chat in the last conversation with Mike. He went back to the Egyptian vernacular architecture and used local materials and local technologies, a lot of which were low tech. So I think, you know, that these things, a lot of them already exist, these models, and it's really just kind of not just, but we have to re-educate ourselves into adopting old technologies and old vernaculars as well, and combining them with this new vision that is happening here. I'm not going to say that we're creating, because I believe it's being created through us. In the Bible, they say, thy will be done. You know, it's not my will, it's the will of creation or God coming through us, working through us. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating question, but I also question how, you know, it's I mean, it's we're kind of like a community of drug addicts who are deep into some really addictive drug like heroin or something like that, and we're groping our way out of the addiction into a much, you know, just a radically different life, a radically different world. And so I just question how much we're actually able to really embrace it from where we are now. But there are two kind of big transitional media that I think can help us make the transition. One is what we're doing right here, collective superintelligence, because with this, we just really get in harmony and in communion in a way that we don't otherwise. And then another is some sort of economic transitional platform, which could be ahimsa currency, as Dr. Silas Rao and others are pioneering, could be Triple C, as we've been pioneering at Radish, and we can talk more about that. But I'd love to hear from other folks, especially as I work my way outside to get a little fresh air. I'll bring the computer. So I'll just be relocating, but I'll be listening to everything as I relocate. So love to hear everyone's thoughts.
Well, part of the struggle is realizing that recognizing the necessity and the utility of these older systems, and them having their time and their life, and they have a life and death cycle. And following on that, I mean, the thing that got me really, a bunch of things got me freaked out about runaway capitalism, but the thing that really like hit it home for me was realizing just how much we continue to automate, and the potential there for good is so enormous. Automation and clean, safe nuclear energy, you know, just contemplating those two things, being a part of our lifetimes. Those two things alone, to me, say, okay, well, we better have a better way of organizing things than everybody fend for themselves, and we have like machines walking around that can understand you, you know, or walking around, whatever. It's a Siri type thing you're talking to, whatever. We have crazy artificial intelligence, all of this technological development. Like the baseline needs, it's the baseline better be raising with the rest of it, you know. And I don't know. That's the thing I come back to, even though I don't have like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think universal basic income is going to be an absolute necessity, and as machines take work away from us, I think we're all being asked to commit to some higher form of work and investing ourselves in higher things, so to speak. As like I guess I'll just end with the thing I visualize is a triangle pyramid structure with technology. There's a bunch of different ways you could draw this triangle, but I like to think of technology as this base, like a foundation, kind of like a house, with humanity living on top of it, and all this technology, enabling these ways of life that were never possible before. And as the whole pyramid is growing, the limits of our technological capabilities they're heightening, which is only pushing us up to a level of experience, of consciousness, of life, or whatever you want to call it. That wasn't possible before. Anyways, it looked like Melissa had something to say.
Yeah, hi. I really don't agree with that. I don't think that Siri is a good thing. I don't think nuclear energy is a clean energy. I think it's really dangerous. We just have to look at Fukushima. If anything, the pyramid, we need to get back to planting our roots in the ground. We need to start using low tech. We need to start building houses that are handmade. We need to start slowing down and not continuing on these crazy production lines where we use bots and all this technology. I think the technology is a tool right now for collective intelligence is a really great one, and bringing people together in conversation. But if anything, I think it needs to take us back to a artisan, handmade, slow tech, ground up, building community, planting seeds. And then this whole question of work, well, what is work? In America, we see work as a way to make money, but work is way more than that. Work is a pilgrimage. And I think we have to relook at, well, what is work? Building houses together, building community, planting gardens, creating art, that kind of work is holistic, it's healthy, it's spiritually connected. So I don't see the work, building cars, sure, you build robots, but I think we need to build fewer cars. Let's have a few cars per community that can be shared. We don't need to keep increasing the technology and getting further and further away from the dirt that we should be walking on with bare feet and eating. We gotta eat the dirt. Get our hands dirty again.
At this point, Melissa, we gotta keep putting that dirt up there. At this point in the game, unfortunately, as bad as that sounds, we gotta keep putting that dirt up there in the sky. I don't know. It's just, it's a horrible thing to have to say that, but it's the way I see it. That's the way I understand it. So
You're talking about the global dimming, right, Emery?
yeah. You have to keep it in perspective. Have to keep what we say in perspective as to, you know, how that fits into our reality, what we're facing. You know, I'm all for a lot of these ideas, but given our situation, you know, we can't implement many things. You know, we have to be wary. You know, we have to see, you know, what's best for our survival. You know, at this stage of the game.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, global dimming is vital for our survival right now and will remain as such until we have implemented planetary scale SRM. It's as simple as that. Ask Guy McPherson. He and I don't agree on everything, but on that we agree. But that's still a temporary thing. I mean, it's not like we need a dirty economy in order to stay alive. For now we do, but that's very temporary. Once we have planetary scale SRM, then we can eliminate all emissions as far as I'm concerned and sequester, because we will have found the dimmer switch for the temperature.
That's obvious, you know, that's logical. That's logic. Yes.
But all that is actually a separate conversation from the conversation of what should be the mode of production of the global economy and what should fundamentally be the game that we're playing here. What game are we playing? Right now it's a game of hoarding, which brings out the worst in people and actually sets up the game so that literally every other player in this game of Monopoly is your enemy, your competitor. And because
Even if you think of like the fashion industry, right? Where does that come from? I mean, I love fashion. I love textiles. I love patterns. I like dressing the body. I think it's really interesting. But actually, if you look at it philosophically, it's kind of like, well, that's such a waste. It pollutes. You know, it's expensive. Only it's for an elite. It's slave labor. You know, we're using children and paying people unfairly in Vietnam and Indonesia and Korea to sew things for the West. And it's all that is superfluous. It's unnecessary. Let's get back to handmade, making our own clothes, knitting. You know, we've gotten lazy. We're used to being able to go to I don't know, the Gap and buy things cheap, you know, and then they fall apart and it's slave labor. It's not okay. I wasn't talking, Emery, about, you know, global dimming and global warming or, you know, abrupt climate change. I was talking more about this. How do we make what is the future we're going to make? What is the world going to, how would we describe that world we want to create now? That's what I was talking about, getting our hands dirty again and slowing down. Of course, there are all these intermediary things that have to happen to get us there. But I don't see it as this sort of, well, the machines are going to take over and we won't have to work anymore again. And we can just sit back in our lounge chairs and look at the view. I don't see that happening, and I don't want that kind of world personally. That doesn't make sense to me. That's not a beautiful world for me. Singing and dancing for Mother Earth, that's a beautiful world. Carving totem poles that honor the orcas, that honor the eagles, that's a beautiful world for me.
I'm with you
How
there.
do we get into Western civilization to that place of reverence and community and celebration and awe?
Right. I'm with you there. You know, lately, you know, I've had a concern also with, you know, EMFs. What are EMPs? I'm gonna say. You know, and that's no joke either. You know, they talk about the Carrington event, and we're so dependent on our technology and everything. You know, we may just go back to the old days, you know, where we didn't have many of our modern day conveniences for sure. we just might have to go back to that. But then we got all this nuclear business that will go out of control and whatnot. And if trillions of dollars aren't going to be spent on hardening the grids around the world, this could be another major corona problem, corona type global problem, catastrophe or whatever. And the sun is capable of unleashing these things from time to time. We have to be aware of these things, and I don't think they have it hardened down enough. And these transformers and equipments that are that are the lifeblood of the system, of the grid, it takes a good 6 years to manufacture, and they're all manufactured in China. So, better pray that they stay alive there and are able to keep production going or stock up.
Yeah, I really like what Melissa said, the spirit of what you said about, working with our hands and being artisans. Like, I dream of working in a greenhouse with soil, with my hands, right? I would love to do that. And likewise, I'm sure there are people who would love to drive a tractor. And just because I love working in a greenhouse today, and maybe I do that for, a few years, and then maybe there's something else I want to do, right? So just imagine that. Think of the global economy as this giant machine, right? Right now the machine is in the process of breaking down, right, and shutting down, right? But we're going to create a whole new machine, whether it's low tech, high tech, somewhere in between. Let's leave that as an unanswered question for the moment. But just consider the following as part of the mode of production. So let's assume that we've got collective superintelligence, because I think it's fairly well established we're going to need that in order to survive anyway, right? So if there's going to be a future, it's going to be a collectively superintelligent future. I think that's a reasonable assumption. And if that's the case, then the entire machinery of the entire global economy, okay, all that machinery is going to require, maintenance and updating and, human intervention. It's like I was saying, somebody has to work in the greenhouse, right? Even if we have a significant amount of automation, there's always work that the humans need to do, right? I suppose we could go fully automated, but that would probably take I was about to say that would take time, but in a world of collective superintelligence, it can happen very quickly. But here's one point I wanted to make, and I kind of feel like the path is kind of like through a series of points. I don't think there's just one thesis that we can just present at this point yet. But one point I want to make is, let's say you've got this global machinery, high tech, low tech, I don't know, but there's this global machinery, it's the global economy, that requires human work, human participation. And then imagine that with the collective superintelligence and sensors and cameras and all that just become vanishingly cheap, just like Ray Kurzweil predicted back in 2005. And the trend has been pretty good in that direction. The collective superintelligence will have total visibility at all times into essentially every single part of this global machinery of the global economy, right? There will just, it'll be built in, right? And therefore, the system will know if Jamin walked off the job in the greenhouse and didn't, and didn't commit to checking, to continuing with whatever work that he was working. If I just go off on a walkabout, I'm hearing some background noise. Melissa, I'm going to mute you, sweetheart, just to see if that's you. Anyway, imagine that Jamin, goes on a walkabout and doesn't ever return to the greenhouse again. Well, it would just appear on the job board, so to speak, right? The Craigslist job board of the collective superintelligence, that there's an open position at the greenhouse. And that, and someone else who's dreaming of working at a greenhouse might just step in and take that role, right? Why not? I mean, just like I dream of working in a greenhouse, I'm sure somebody else does. I can't be the only one, right? And so just imagine that all of this is simply up on this massive job board of work opportunities. And imagine that we tweak the automation versus manual balance of the economy so that there's always more people wanting to do work than there is work to be done. So then it becomes, we sort of change the game a little bit, so that if I go on a walkabout and leave my greenhouse duties, there'll be like a line of people, a waiting list to be able to get in there and work in the greenhouse, right? And I mean, why not, right? Why not fine tune the automation versus manual so that manual work will actually be in demand? People will want to do it. They'll be, bored and unsatisfied if they're not doing it. I think that's part of my desire to work in it with plants in a greenhouse, is because part of me needs to be in nature and involved in food production. I mean, maybe that's just like kind of like a need I have that's not being fulfilled, right? You guys get what I'm saying? Because if we were able to tweak it like that, then it would be a solved problem, because there'd be a waiting list for every job, whether it's tractor driver. Now, cleaning toilets, I don't know. I actually don't mind cleaning bathrooms, believe it or not. But maybe it would be the kind of thing where, an hour cleaning toilets is equivalent to 3 hours working in the greenhouse. So in order to kind of fulfill my quota, if I had to work, say, 20 hours a week in the greenhouse to fulfill my quota, I might only have to work 7 hours a week cleaning toilets, right? So somebody who really enjoyed, I don't know, surfing or kayaking or painting or something like that, maybe they'll do the toilet job. You know what? I'm going to work these 7 hours. I'm going to clean all these toilets and be done with it, right? That's what I'm talking about tweaking, right? Finding the right balance. And it would, I think, of necessity be a dynamic balance that's constantly re-equilibrating, right? Because there will always be change, right? But, there'll always be new technologies and whatnot. You know what? I just caught myself. Listen to what I just said. Oh, there'll always be new technologies. There's a community in which there is not always new technologies. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? There's a community for which there is not always new technologies. The Amish. You see, my whole father's side of the family is from southeastern Ohio, and that's been Amish country for decades. And they use, manual tools. the leadership of the Amish, church, religion, way of life, whatever, they establish which technologies you can use and which you can't, right? And so, they've got horse and buggy, and they plow their fields with horses, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm even suggesting that in finding the right balance for the world, that might include, restricting certain technologies. Why not? We restrict certain technologies today, right? Why shouldn't we restrict technologies in the future? Or simply expand the restriction of technologies? Because right now in today's world, technologies are far less constrained than they're not very constrained, is what I'm trying to say, right? People can pretty much do whatever the hell they want in destroying and polluting Mother Earth, right? Oh, you want to enslave a bunch of animals and put them in confined close quarters and force feed them and do all kinds of, brand them and do all kinds of terrible stuff? Oh, yeah, no problem. Go. Yeah, just do it. No problem. As long as you're paying taxes, go for it, right? Oh, I developed a new missile that'll kill more people upon impact. Oh, the military is interested. Let's talk. All right. So, I mean, we're constraining ourselves very, very little, right? I think in a more intelligent world, we will constrain ourselves. Well, we'll constrain the use of certain technologies. Let's put it that way. But I think it's also fair to say that we will continually invest as a species. But you see, we have to think as a species. And you see, if we think as a species and solve this holistically by designing and building and fine-tuning and evolving and improving the overall machinery of the global economy, automated and human, right? That we can solve this holistically in such a way that people's motivation for doing their work or their portion of the work, and for feeling good about it and motivated to do it and inspired to do it and doing it creatively and with dedication, that motivation does not have to come from hoarding. We can find many other ways to motivate people, like I just described. If we tweak the balance between automation and manual so that there's actually, if anything, a scarcity of manual opportunities for manual labor, right? There's only so many greenhouses, right? It's not like there's infinite jobs for people who want to work in the greenhouse, right? So if there's scarcity and there's more people who want to work in greenhouses than there are jobs in greenhouses, that's a good thing, isn't it? Why not? Right? And likewise for all different jobs. Oh, Emery, sorry, I just noticed you had your hand up. I hope you didn't have it up for a long time, and if you did, I apologize. Back to you, Emery.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in to say that I like the idea of petting fish. That's a great thing, great idea there that Mike had. I love it. It's wonderful, and that needs to be expanded everywhere. I like that technology that he has going there, and I'm sure there's a lot of it going on, except that here in the big city we don't get any of that produce, or who knows, maybe we do get some, but it's not on my plate. But I like the idea. I really, and I'd be there petting those fish. Believe you me.
I believe you, Emery. I love petting fish who love to be petted. And I just love petting animals generally. And but you see that's a great example. What Mike was laying out for us is an example of what could potentially be a massive part of the machinery of the new global economy, where we're, you know, much more home-centric and neighborhood-centric, right? I think that's where we're happiest anyway. At home, you know, with, okay, fine, maybe we hang out with the neighbors, play ping pong, play soccer, whatever, right? But for me anyway, I've always been happiest the more, kind of the closer to home I am. You know what I mean? And so it could be that look, all this kind of presupposes that there are sort of like optimal states for the global economy, right? That there are kind of optimal equilibrium states where everything's in balance and it's regenerative and it's fun and it's healthy and it feels good and everyone's needs are met and no one's killing each other and all that, right? Well, why not, right, Emery? I see Emery's thumb went up. Why not? Shoot, listen, if we're going to redesign our world, we might as well do it right. Look, it's kind of like if you're going to spend, you know, $50,000 to redo your kitchen, you might as well end up with the kitchen you want and not some kitchen you hate. You know what I mean? I mean, look, we are in a forced redesign, not just of our kitchen, but of our entire planet. We're redesigning humanity's footprint, which, let's face it, means redesigning the planet. Why? Because we're going to redesign our interactions and impacts on all species and ecosystems. There's not a single one that's not going to be impacted. So when we clean up the oceans, cool the oceans, and deacidify the oceans, marine life is going to bounce back. And what I'm saying is that's by design. We're going to redesign the world to have less acid in the oceans, less crap in the oceans, less heat in the oceans, right? We're going to redesign the world, for crying out loud. We're going to redesign the world. So we might as well make it a design that we really, really like and that that checks a whole bunch of check boxes. Is everyone taken care of? Is everyone happy? Is the world at peace? Right? And when you start to look at it from that lens, what we've done all of a sudden looks so stupid. And it's not stupid because a stupid person designed it or stupid people designed it. It's stupid because it is completely devoid of design, or 99% devoid of design. It's basically, all right, you humans, it's everyone for themselves and everyone's your enemy. So everyone get a gun, get an SUV with a big loud horn, build a big McMansion so you can create your own universe inside of it and just say screw you to everyone outside of it, right? So you can live for weeks on end inside your mansion with your indoor swimming pool and golf course in your 100-acre backyard and everything else. I mean, it's just absurd, right? But that evolved from lack of design, not from a bunch of stupid people trying to design something and doing a stupid job. There was no design. It's just everyone for themselves. We are coming out of a profoundly stupid, idiotic configuration of humanity, global economy, and impacts on our Mother Earth. Okay, Melissa's heading home. Nolan writes, a healthy economy should be designed to thrive, not grow. Beautiful. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
And that I linked to it's a TED Talk where
I am most pleased and most happy to introduce our very
whoops, I had a technical mess up there. But I linked to a TED Talk and Kate is the lady who speaks, and she talks about exactly what you were just talking about, Jamin, about like how, well, first she talks about how our economy and our operations as a society have been focused on growth, but then what happens is you end up exploiting everything until it falls apart, and then you realize, okay, well, there's no more growth to be had in whatever, you know, way that eventually led to destruction. There's a balancing point, right, where, okay, we can only extract this much resource from the planet and have that be sustainable. And if we try to extract more, then we're slowly just killing the planet. And then if we're extracting less, then there's just missed potential. Extracting makes it sound kind of harsh, but anyway, she talks about this economic model based on thriving rather than growing. And she demonstrates it with a circle, and you can imagine that all the different sectors are represented by like different angles coming out from the center of the circle, and it's ultimately a ring, like a balancing ring that we're trying to find.
Yeah, exactly. A balanced, optimal, thriving, compassionate, loving, fun, joyous, artistic, beautiful, co-creative, you know? Like, I remember when I was a kid in the summers, and we'd have these big family reunions back in Ohio at the old family farm, and we'd just be running around, and I always had cousins to play with, whether it was checkers or going fishing or going on some long walk or whatever, or just hanging out. But it's like life was perfect, right? You know when life is good, and there are times when it's just been wonderfully good, right? Why not design a world where life is just wonderfully good? Why not? I mean, what else would we do? Design a world that's bad? I mean, we're here for a reason. We were given all this intelligence and ability to communicate and everything for a reason. Let's fulfill on that reason. We need to stop the madness, stop the omnicide, transform ourselves, transform the planet, heal the place, and be happy. And yeah, and basically there's two kinds of people in the world relative to that. There's people who say, oh, that's impossible. And it's just human nature. So shut up and get a job, right? And those who say, yes, it is possible. With collective superintelligence, anything that's physically possible is possible, right? Because we simply eliminate the barriers to it and go straight to it. If it's physically possible, it's possible. Was it physically possible to put people on the moon and bring them home safely? Yes. Therefore, it was achieved with the collective superintelligence that was NASA during the 1960s. And what an intelligence. Because all these brilliant scientists and engineers and technicians and specialists and whatnot were all in one place. So they could have in-person meetings as readily as we have Zoom video conferences. Just walk down the hall, all right? They had collective superintelligence. Emery writes, life is great, especially when you can go make a nice cup of Java, as I will go for right now. Well, good for you, Emery. And more power to you, bro. You enjoy that cup of Java. And I feel like I've been talking a lot, so I'm going to go on mute and listen for a change.
Well, I'll jump in and say I'm having a time on my end looking for a I just think this is such a cool aspect of collective intelligence that exists already. So like years ago, I remember listening to, I say years as if it's been decades, but it was probably like 3 years ago. His showmanship is rubbing off on me. I remember listening to Terence McKenna, and he has this awesome talk that gets at exactly what you've been talking about, Jamin, redesigning our societies, and he just totally tears a hole and he's just brilliant. But anyways, I was able to find the YouTube video, and with the transcripts that YouTube automatically generates, I got to I'm finding exactly the spot I wanted to get to show off to you. So I'm going to have some of that to share in a little bit here.
Awesome. More thoughts from more people equals more collective intelligence.
Yeah, I have a thing.
Yeah, Shankar.
Yes, I think now the more of a crowdsourcing or open source or more of such things will take over. Like people would, or it's like the Google or Blue Ocean they call it. You will be paid, you will be fed, you will be secured, like in terms of life. But at the same time, you'll still be contributing passionately for something else. So there won't be, because when you're struggling, the thriving is lost. So then you start really living. Then because that's the time you're under pressure. You're like, I'll do whatever I want. I really don't care about the big things, or holistically, I don't care. Like I know it's becoming like a collective dumbness, but we know it's. I know you're telling about intelligence, but it's in that way. But when few needs are taken care of, basic needs, other things are taken care of, there is a passion that anybody will have. Even a dying person would have a passion, like something, definitely for something. Probably this open source or crowdsource or something uniting by the passion, virtually across the world, will make the people to contribute more, and some will be still interested in do something. We cannot limit them, but as long as we get a good critical mass of the people who are focusing towards the problems. See, now the world attention is definitely in solving the coronavirus or the novel COVID. How does that happen? Because we understood it's a really a threat to humanity. So we are realizing, and a lot of people, they don't care about the pay. They are like, it's a life or existence. So nothing comes to your mind. Your palace doesn't come before you. Your Rolls Royce doesn't come before you. Because it's a survival, and how the attention is. We were able to forego a lot. Like, do you really need a vacation now? So question yourself, like, so it really makes you to rethink. So, but we should also come out always. I will do that only when there is a crisis. That's also we should see in the other way too. Like, but the point is simple. like how we are coming together as a passion. Like the other thing is people have space. Okay, people have space means they won't come together. Just leave me alone. I will do whatever I want in my own way. As long as it's like a virtual community, like for example, programming, you can take a lot of people contribute. They don't see each other, but they contribute from each other from different parts of the world. And this ideas, you cannot literally, that passion you cannot reduce by a geography. Because one guy in maybe Egypt has the talent, and the next guy in Australia has a talent. Then the next guy probably in like maybe in Texas has a talent. So, but all these people are like leaders, visionaries, and whatever they do passionately. So maybe they can all come together. First there'll be a leveling, but they will all work together, and a big kind of forms a pyramid, or kind of like forms a flat floor in some way. But the mission will be there. So how to bring them together? Yes, internet is a tool, technology is a tool. But that if they come together, there is a momentum. And these people, they are really passionate. They really don't care about pay and all. So as long as they know, at some point of their life, they know this is the basic resources I need, I can get in. It's like the carpenter. The day the carpenter learns that these are the tools that he can make wonders out of it, sculpture out of it, or anything out of it, or even artist. The day they learn, oh, this is the paintbrush, oh, this is the paint. Wow, my world has started. So until that, so maybe we need that. Coding is one example. Let's say people are pushing people to code, like learn, you never know. Like then like that, all this, maybe we can see it as a passion. There is a young, like a fresh blood coming in. So how they can easily feel that it's my world. Wow, I really want to make something out of something here. I want to contribute, or I'm just occupied out of that. Maybe they just like the moment of swimming in that. They really don't care. Like the swimmer doesn't. That swimmer doesn't care about the boundaries. He just like the moment of swimming. Yeah. So how can we bring them all together?
Brilliant, Shankar. I like that you brought up like open source. So consider like Linux, for example, right? Totally open source. If there were a component of Linux that suddenly had a bug in it and it was making it not operate correctly, how long do you think that bug would last? Anybody want to guess? From the moment it's identified, okay, it's not going to last very long at all. Why? Because essentially there's, just like I talked about, a waiting list to get into the greenhouse, there are people waiting to fix stuff on Linux, right? That's their greenhouse, right? And that's the point. See, but the reason it works that way is because Linus Torvalds and whoever else created a framework within which open source could happen. We are creating a framework within which collective superintelligence can happen. And collective superintelligence in turn becomes a framework for us co-designing, co-creating, and maintaining a world in an optimal state of our choosing. I mean,
I understood. Like you said, there should be a challenge. The challenge brings people together.
that's it. Yeah. The challenge of creating the best operating system, Linux, it brings all these people together. Emery writes, there was a time back when my health was better 10 cups of Java a day was a normal day. These days I get 2 a day. Well, enjoy every sip. I mean, look at us. Nobody's paying us. We show up on this essentially open source platform for co-creating collective superintelligence and a vegan world and a world where no one's hungry and a cool world, et cetera, et cetera. We're doing it for the challenge, for the love of the planet, right? And see, we have to really understand that the analogy is we're kind of like a crack baby born addicted to heroin in a really violent Brazilian ghetto in one of the Brazilian megacities that has notoriously violent ghettos, right? We're born all screwed up internally, and then externally there's just all this violence, you know. No wonder we're going to be all screwed up, right? No, we're totally screwed up right now. We have to acknowledge, right? You know, I'm Jamin Shively and I'm an alcoholic. I'm Jamin Shively and I'm screwed up from this culture. I was born into captivity. I was beaten. I was bullied. I was, you know, to paraphrase that song, staying alive. Where the words go, I've been kicked around since I was born, you know, da da da. I've been kicked around since I was born, right? We've been kicked around by our culture, by this stupid Monopoly game. You guys ever played Monopoly where you're going at it for hours and really getting into it, and when you finally get up and walk away from it, you almost feel kind of ill. Ugh, you know what I mean? And you walk out and it's like 4:30 in the afternoon and you're like, I just wasted a beautiful day playing this stupid game, right? Cesare, good to see you. I'm striving to pronounce your name correctly. Cesare. Am I saying it right? Cesare? Good, awesome. See, because I have a funky name myself. And so, anyway, we're talking about...
like the Normalist Violence Anonymous.
Yeah, that's it. Cesare, we're talking about how screwed up life is on this planet and how, you know, we're born into this toxic culture. We're born into captivity. We're not out in nature. We're, you know, inside these plaster walls, right? Which constitute somewhat of a prison cell. And we're taught that that's a good thing. And we're taught all these things. And we're just loaded up with all this crap that takes us away from nature and into the world of money and ego and hoarding and games and, you know, political games of the bad kind, not the good kind. And so what we're talking about is acknowledging that we're in this screwed up state relatively, right? I've said a number of times on the Block Party, it's important to know at what point in the football game you are, how many minutes are left and how many points you have and how many points the other side has. That'll determine what you do and don't do. That'll determine your whole strategy. So we need to know where we're at in the football game. Where we're at in this football game is we were born in the fucking toilet. Pardon my French. I really set a bad example there. I apologize. We were born in the toilet, right? In a cultural toilet, in a mode of production of the global economy that's a stinking toilet, right? Hoarding, separation, ego, monetization, reducing everything to the zero-dimensional fiat currency, right? And I mean, it's just, as we take stock of where we are actually at, we're in a big pile of excrement. And we've been marinating in it since the day we were born. with abuse, with bullying, with violence, with backstabbing, with lies at all levels, violence, freaking flying off young men with shaved heads to other countries to kill people. There's a million Iraqis dead who wouldn't have been dead if we hadn't started that frivolous war, right? A million. Anyway, I could go on and on. What's my point? As Cesare might say, what's your point? Here's my point. We're screwed up. We're screwed up in the head. We're screwed up in the heart. We're screwed up physically. We're screwed up in all kinds of ways, and we're screwed up in how we relate to each other. Okay? Why do I make that point? Because in addition to designing something cool, we also need to do this group therapy, right? And the moment you entered, Cesare, Shankar was saying, I'm Jamin Shively, and I'm a, what did you call it? Something to the effect of
Organized Violence Anonymous.
Organized Violence Anonymous. Exactly. I'm Jamin Shively, and I'm both a victim of and a participant in organized violence. How do you like that? I'm both a victim of and participant in and perpetrator of organized violence. Right? Because if I'm going to be honest, I'm all those things.
Yeah, maybe I have a thing like, see, that is what makes me think, okay, like I'm taking totally from a science.
Mm.
I'm not being, or I don't want to offend any religious views. Just like if we think we all evolved out of several beings, definitely we have retained all the traits all those animals went through. So as a humans, maybe we still intellectually feel very secure. Still, there is a lot of insecurity that came up with in our evolutionary journey. So all those things can evolve anytime in a given situation. Any threat can make us anything like right from we can become territorial, or we can totally become very like greedy or more even destructive, like psychopath, whatever. Because it's there in such a big evolutionary journey. And if we are not occupied in the right way, maybe we are channelizing our insecurities or channelizing us in that. And people then they form a group or whatever group they call, like, I'm hurt, right? That day this happened, that day that happened. This to my person, this happened. My fellow person, this happened. So why you're doing that? No, I'm not doing it. It happened to my community. We all start finding a reason, or religion could be one of the reasons. So there is a part I'm saying is like maybe we still have those, our genes have retained some of those things from the evolution. Because I can see you can simply see a monkey's, maybe a gorilla is a somewhat calmer, but the monkey is like, oh my God, it never settles. It always looks for some trouble, and the curious, so much curious. And for us, we have a good, I can say a very civilized face, but inside is the same energy, same hyperness.
Yeah, and I'm You're the monkey, but I totally hear what you're saying. And see, the thing is, I mean, one thing that's kind of that characterizes nature and the wild generally is, eat or get eaten, right? And whoa, I don't want either of those. Look at those dogs up there that Emery put up there. They came from wolves who are pretty darn vicious meat eaters. Watch out. And so it's kind of like the entire world has been in this modality of that super violent Brazilian ghetto, right? And so humanity just kind of, there's a saying we have in Mexico, a como me tocan, bailo. Depending on how they play the music, that's how I'm gonna dance, baby, okay? You play fast, I'll dance fast. You play slow, I'll dance slow. right? And humanity has, for lack of a better word, evolved or devolved in a world where the music was the music of violence. Let's face it. Look out in the forest. It's not exactly Bambi. It's more like Bambi getting her throat ripped out by a hungry wolf, right? It's Bambi 2. Bambi gets eaten by wolf, right? It's the sequel to Bambi. Anyway, I'm just kind of building off of what you're saying, Shankar, in that, how did we get to this crazy place, right? How did we do that? Well, here's one hypothesis. Anyway, we could go on, but the point is we're screwed up. And we've defaulted into an economic system, which I say defaulted because it's really not designed. It's just defaulted. We were trading for pieces of gold or other precious metals or seashells or animals or whatever, but there was always a currency. As long as there was ownership, there was currency, right? And so we defaulted into this system of ownership, of private property, of currency. And then a bunch of smart economists wrote up theories and whatever to justify it. That's all it is. Oh, it's an invisible hand. It's really smart. Smart my ass. Hey, Adam Smith. Hey, ghost of Adam Smith. Take a look at the world that this invisible hand painted, right? It's a fucking mess, Adam. So, fuck your invisible hand, right? Here's your invisible hand. I just made it visible, Adam. Take a look at that. Right? These economists write stories to appease the rich. Why? So the rich will give them positions in economics departments. My cousin was professor of engineering economic systems at Stanford. So he's met some of this, most famous economists living and practicing. And that's the gig, right? If you do their bidding, the rich will give you a cushy job at Stanford, basically, where you write books justifying the present system, right? I remember talking with this really rich guy, easily 100 millionaire, probably billionaire by now. And, I was telling him about what I was doing. The work I was doing with Triple C and all that and ending hunger. And he immediately pointed out, oh, goodness, no, there's this, it's been proven. There's great books written by this professor at Harvard, right? Who makes it very clear that if you try to help the poor by giving them resources, you're only going to hurt them. Right? But that's why they've got professors of economics at Harvard, so that the rich can justify hoarding.
Yeah, actually, there's one person who actually did it in a different thing. Like he's one of the Bangladesh economist. Forgot his name. He's very famous for the Grameen.
Muhammad Yunus.
Yes, Yunus, Nobel Prize.
Founder of Grameen Bank. Yeah.
Yes, and what he did is he never lent those microloans to the like a husband or what do you call the family member, the male family member, because he found them all irresponsible.
The breadwinner.
Yes, but he did it to the mothers. These mothers were very, very hopeful on their kids, and they really these moms want their kids to be very successful. And this micro loan was a boon to them. So they took this, and that creative power, or the power of the mother, that I don't know, the economics will capture that, or maybe it needs a separate discipline within to capture that. So instead of just seeing between just as logical equations or some kind of a linear, non-linear things, that emotion and everything, it flipped something different, and those things are definitely missing in the classical economics or something. Or maybe they just brush it out, just written for men's world. That's all. It's all written with the men's world, not as a, not having the compassion or the welfare of the person in mind than the welfare of society. So, and the welfare is nothing equals to a happiness. It's all about how much I can acquire. Like if I have 2 cars, that will make me happy until my neighbor gets the new model. So that power of how the female member in the family, like she was able to tap that, and that emotion of raising the kid made a difference in the economy. I know it's may not be nothing in a guy's world. So like, hey, talk me something logic. I'll talk to you. But raising a kid is something which a mom strives for. Like, I want this kid to be safe. I want this kid to be some better person.
Well, here's my analysis of that. And I've read about Muhammad Yunus and Grameen Bank, and I find it very, very impressive. But here's how I see that. The bottom line. Bangladesh is an extremely poor country. It's hard to it's hard to name countries that are more poor. And the way I see that model of microloans and all that is mothers trying to take care of their children and doing the very best that they can in a terrible system that would let them starve if they didn't go out and make this thing called money. Which, of course, you know, as we all know, I'm not going to articulate this very well, but you know the principle. By reducing everything to money, this reductionist thing, we end up selling off and killing and enslaving any form of life if we can monetize it. It's as simple as that. So bless their hearts, those mothers who've taken the microloans and are working hard to feed their kids. God bless them. They're doing the very best that they can within a terrible system that beckons and begs to be radically transformed, revolutionized even, but not with violence. But yes, it needs to be revolutionary.
That makes me think of Terence McKenna talked about this a kind of violence in language, you could say, which is, I feel like, where the battle is being fought now. Like, it's not a matter, I don't know, I feel like a large part of what we're doing with the community, with the collective intelligence we're developing now, is just iteratively testing our ideas and then using that to, you know, like in my experience watching Jamin over many months, his responses have gotten more sophisticated because people have been asking questions from different angles and like making him and me and everyone else think more about these things and in different ways. And then that, to follow the analogy, we're better equipped on this, you know, playing field of thought, you know, and we're basically just like, what's the collective intelligence, collective superintelligence feels like getting it an indisputable thing that we can build off of, you know, and I don't really, I'm not super into the analogy of language as a weapon, but shit, if like, and this is something Terence McKenna has talked about before, basically he calls on people to if basically to to kill idiots, like metaphorically, like with your language. He's like, it's I don't know. It's a good talk, but I don't want to totally derail you, Jamin.
No. I love what you're saying, and I love what Emery just wrote about Texas Chainsaw. There was this movie, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's kind of a famous movie from years ago. I never saw it, but it sounds delicious. Anyway, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So imagine we do the Texas Chainsaw thing, but to stupid ideas like neoliberal global capitalism and unbridled hoarding, right? I want to chainsaw massacre that idea through dialogue, through logic, through example, through collective superintelligence. Collective superintelligence are like a bunch of badass hungry wolves, and we're going to throw them this stupid idea of global capitalism and watch them rip it apart. Pardon me, vegans, but that's going to be red meat to the dogs. Red meat to the dogs. So my question is, who let the dogs out? Who let the dogs out? Who? That's one of the things we sing at Husky football games, the Washington State Huskies, the dogs, Husky dogs. We're letting the dogs out. We're letting the dogs out. Vamos a echarle los perros a la inteligencia colectiva. That's how we'd say it in Mexican. We are letting the dogs out on collective superintelligence. They're badass, they got sharp teeth, and they're hungry. And we're going to throw them this sacrificial, I don't want to say what, but we're going to throw them this sacrificial something called the current mode of production of the global capitalist system. We're going to toss that to the dogs as an appetizer. It's going down. It's going down philosophically, logically. We're going to assassinate it with our words, non-violently. Pardon the metaphors. Going on mute. Love this conversation. And you know, here's the thing. It's like, with the Block Party, it is like an intense deep dive into really hard topics where, given the ultra long format, there's only one way to go: deeper, 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 in a way that you could never do in a 30-minute conversation or even a 2-hour conversation. But give it 24 hours. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Nolan.
I have some Terence McKenna that's relevant, but I want to let anybody else speak and get their ideas out before I share that.
I used to watch Terence McKenna's program in, I don't know, it's a UK version or something. He used to do the Paranormal Activity. Yeah. There is a program, TV program, it's called the Paranormal Activity of Terence McKenna. I think it's Terence McKenna. Let me check out. Paul McKenna. Wait a minute. Maybe I'm switching the people. Is that guy has a blue eyes?
I don't know about his eye color. He's got like big round glasses and kind of curly, big head of hair.
Okay.
And he talks like an alien.
All right. Different. I'll take it back. I'm sorry. I'm referring to a different person.
I really don't care for all this bad mouthing of capitalism, and I don't think
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got disconnected for a few seconds. I'm And now it says internet unstable. Oh shoot. All right.
Anybody here?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you.
Oh, cool.
Hey guys, sorry, I got disconnected, and but just for a few seconds. Nolan, it still says live on custom streaming. I just want to check it and make sure that didn't get screwed up. Let me see if I can check that here real quick. Sorry about the interruption, you guys. Just trying to see if this is working or not. All right, it appears to be working.
I love how I'm eating all this different food and I didn't have to grow any of it.
Okay, and Cesare, when I got interrupted there a couple of minutes ago, and I'm going to try one more thing, and then I may have to just head inside, but let me try something here. Because I know we're in the middle of a really awesome conversation. Second, bear with me. Bunga. Okay, so far so good. I've made, okay. So, so Cesare, before I got disconnected, I heard you saying that you didn't like all this bad mouthing of capitalism, right?
Yeah.
And I would love to hear what you said or have to say about that.
Oh, I think capitalism is great. It's about freedom. People have the freedom to pursue whatever enterprise they want, and resources are allocated according to what the people want. It's beautiful. It's a self-sorting system. It solves its own problems. I mean, it can be optimized, but most of the big problems are solved naturally by the invisible hand, so to speak. But it's really just supply and demand. It can be harsh. I mean, definitely it doesn't take into consideration certain individuals that maybe can't produce or their demand is too high. But I mean, that's where the whole, let's say, humanity aspect comes in. Capitalism is not meant to be compassionate. That's not what it's about. It's meant to be efficient. And it's amazing at that. It's just fucking amazing. It's up to people to make the capitalism work for the people. It's not capitalism's fault. It's like fire. You know, if you don't know how to use fire, you're going to get burnt. And so, but at the same time, you need fire. That's how you get your energy. Well, the analogy runs out when you look at other forms of energy creation, but basically, yeah, if that was the only thing, then capitalism's like fire. You can't do it without it. Just have to know how to contain it, regulate it, make the most of it, and not have it burn down your house while you're cooking your food. But it's not fire's responsibility to not burn down your house. It's just fire's responsibility is just to burn, and it does it really well. It's your responsibility to make sure that the fire, you know, is contained and that it keeps everyone warm and makes everyone's food hot. So I think people are just ignorant about how capitalism works. That's the thing. That's what capitalism needs. It needs people to know how to use it. That's when it works for everyone. And actually, so if you have like the three different classes that people say there are, the landlord class, the capitalist class, so to speak, and the laborer class. let's say investor class rather than the capitalist class, because technically in capitalism everyone is a capitalist. Actually, everyone is always a capitalist. It's just a matter of whether you're a good capitalist or a bad capitalist. So the problem is that the investor class, they use capitalism by understanding it, whereas the labor class and the landowning class or the landlord class, they also use capitalism, but they don't use capitalism by understanding it. So those two classes are at a disadvantage compared to the investor class. But that's why you need to provide education to those other classes about, how capitalism works and make it work for them. That's the role of society to complement capitalism by making, it's like if capitalism is a game, well, you need the rule book, and everyone, the game is only good if everyone starts playing the game and they know the rules. If you start playing Monopoly and you don't know the rules and you only learn by trying it, well, you fucking lose, right? I mean, you're just screwed. Well, that's how things work with capitalism. Most people don't know how it works. They start playing the game and then, well, they don't get very far. So it's up to society to provide everyone with the rule book and make sure that everyone understands how the rules work. And then you start to play. But that's where society is failing people. They're not teaching about capitalism. But we can fix that. I mean, it's not that hard to fix. I mean, yeah, some people will be too, well, let's just say intellectually incapable of understanding all of that. But that's fine. You don't need everybody to understand it. You just need a lot more people to understand it. If half the people in society understand how things work, then it would be great. But really only like maybe 5% or 1% of people in society understand how the economy works. I'd say it's probably closer to 1%, maybe 0.5%. Most people can't tell their ass from their elbow when it comes to economics. It's pathetic.
I'd like to see a quick showing of hands, if I'm not interrupting something juicy. So sorry.
No, that's it. Yeah.
How many people have heard of the Stockholm Syndrome? Nolan? Cesare?
Heard of it, I don't understand.
You've heard of it? Okay. James has. Shankar has not. Okay. Emery has. Okay. And Cesare, you've heard of it? Okay. So okay. Here's what it is, as I understand it. When someone is kidnapped and they're held in captivity by a competent captor who really has them, locked down and is providing them food and drink and whatever. The captive, the person who's kidnapped, the captive, starts to bond with their captor, right? And essentially get into a form of harmony with their captor. And it's not hard to understand why that is, because they depend upon their captor for sustenance and for not getting executed, right? And so if they were just violent with the captor and aggressive, and then they might just get shot, right? Obviously, the captor is not someone with really good moral and logical faculties, shall we say. They're really screwed up. So you don't know what you're dealing with, so it's better to just play it safe and harmonize with the captor and hope that you can last until, Jodie Foster comes and rescues you. There was a good example of this in the movie Traffic, a powerful movie from year 2000, 2001, something like that, about drug trafficking. Super good movie, insanely good movie, highly recommended. Anyway, so the Stockholm Syndrome. I'm just wondering now, how many people are in a relationship with capitalism that is where capitalism is up here, right? This dominant force that controls all resources and controls this and that and destroys lives and causes millions of people to die of starvation. Now, and I can hear your thoughts, Cesare. I must have ESP or something. It wasn't capitalism that killed all those millions of people, right? And, you know, objection sustained, right? But I'm just wondering out loud, how many people have a relationship with capitalism that is not unlike the Stockholm syndrome, right? Where it's like, shit, here's this oppressive system, here's this system that can either make or break me, right? Much like a captor, they can make or break me. They can feed or kill me. Here's a system that can feed or kill me. It can make me happy or it can make me miserable, right? Well, I better learn to get in harmony with this system. How do I make money? How do I be efficient? Right? And so you get in harmony with it. And to get in harmony with it is to get in harmony with money. And to get in harmony with money is to chop down every last tree. Maybe save one, because who would want to be accused of chopping down the last tree? But up until that tree, chop away. James, you've got something to say. Go for it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there, Jim, and I think I'm slightly taken aback by what Cesare said there as well myself, in the sense that yeah, there is a small percentage of those who know how to use the economy, and then there's the majority, or even majority, who don't. But that's exactly the way it's designed. And you say you either play the game right or you play it wrong. Well, none of us are playing a game when it comes to the economy, because the majority of us are on the bottom scale because we don't know how to play the game, because it's designed by those to, keep the majority of us not being able to play the game and confused. But it's something we're born into, and we have no other choice but to play the game. We all play the game, as Jamin said earlier. We all, the answer to Jamin's question is all of us are playing the game, but majority of us are playing it bad. You know what I mean? And it's not a game; it's just a situation we've been born into and have no other choice but to deal with it as we can, because we don't know any other way. So I don't agree with it in the sense, as Jamin said, it is a form of coercion and brainwashing, and there has to be other ways, because the pursuit of capitalism is basically what is it? The pursuit of I don't know. I'm not losing the word there now, but basically it's all about gain. You know what I mean? And
yeah, it's about hoarding. It's the pursuit of more. It's the pursuit of more in the physical realm, and
exactly,
and of money, which is an invented thing, which lights up the same parts of the brain as heroin, apparently. So it's like a drug. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, it's this, but it's disguised it's in the disguise of prosperity, but it's basically gain, greed. You know what I mean? So yeah, you know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah, totally. And Cesare you've got your hand up, but I just want to make one quick follow-on point. If you're done, James. If not, please carry on. Yeah, which is that I also I totally hear what Cesare is saying, is that, fire is fire. And I think it's a really good kind of analogy, right? Because fire on its own, it's just like, hey man, I'm just me, right? You can contain me or use me irresponsibly, but fire is fire. And so what I think we've been conveniently labeling, convenient, because it's just the first word that popped into mind, But I think what we're labeling as capitalism is really something much bigger, more endemic, more ingrained. It's which is runaway hoarding with no bounds, and the ability and freedom to exterminate life with essentially no bounds, which is what we've done, right? We've exterminated life with essentially no bounds and set the world on a course, you know, like the kid who revs up his dad's Porsche, gets it going up to 40 miles an hour, puts a brick on the accelerator and jumps out of the car and lets it go over the edge of the canyon, right? We have set the planet on a collision course with omnicide, with total death. And I think it is directly linked to the system of runaway hoarding and omnicide for cash, right? The program of, you know, lives for dollars, lives of trees, lives of cattle, lives of humans back in the days of slavery. So it's the runaway hoarding that took us all the way to slavery, right? We're still in the same system as the system we lived in when we had slavery. It's just that slavery has been prohibited, as has cannabis, cocaine, and a bunch of other things. But it's fundamentally the same system. It's runaway hoarding with no limit whatsoever. I promised to be brief, and I think I broke that promise, but no, that was kind of somewhat brief. Anyway, back to you, Cesare, and thank you for your patience.
I just interject there, and I have to state like that slavery still goes on to this day, like, so, you know.
No, it's true.
No.
It's true. Just like cocaine gets snorted all over the place, and so does marijuana in the United States. Prohibition doesn't stop stuff from happening. It's just a change in the law, and it stops it happening in certain places at certain scales. But yeah, there's slavery in the United States. There's human trafficking, courtesy of the criminal drug cartels. So, Nolan, go ahead.
I mean, just quickly, I consider loans with interest, that's a form of slavery right there. If there's a class of people that has all the money and they're repeatedly doing this cycle of giving it to people that don't have it so they can make more, so the people that don't have it can continue getting it from them only to have to pay it back more. Like in my mind, the lines of credit and the like debt web that exists now is just so fucking mind-bogglingly insane that there needs to be something like there was a long time ago in very old civilizations. They would reset all of the debts.
Jubilee. Yeah, Jubilee. That's what it was called, right?
I don't know.
Anyway, I think it was called Jubilee. But see, so that's an example of containing the fire. They didn't do away with capitalism, right? They just had a reset button that every so many years, the reset button got pressed. Just like, twice a day, I'll go into the bathroom and brush my teeth. I reset the level of plaque on my teeth to 0, approximately, right? So it's like capitalism brushing its teeth, a sawtooth pattern. That's containing fire. Hey, yeah, let's go ahead and have a bonfire and, eat a bunch of marshmallows. But you know what? At the end of the party, we put out the fire, right? Jubilee is essentially the putting out of the fire and then letting it rebuild and then putting it out. That's the way it should happen. Anyway, that's just one idea. Great stuff, you guys. See, now we're teasing it apart because now we found the synthesis. Cesare's right. And, the anti-capitalists, to give us a name, are right. We're both right. Why? Capitalism is a tool. It's like fire, and it can either be contained or it can just be runaway, like a runaway wildfire. Anyway, Back to you, Cesarian. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, like I said, I don't think 24 hours is going to be enough to set you guys straight. No, but so maybe, you know, some people have different interpretations of what capitalism is. I mean, to my understanding, the label is used as a shorthand for market-based economics. I mean, that's essentially what it is. I mean, it focuses on the capital, and I think the purpose of that is to emphasize how investors are also doing a valuable kind of work in society. The labor of reallocating capital, making loans, investing in things, all of that it's a valuable kind of contribution. And yeah, I feel so. I think that's what it intends to emphasize and appreciate. Perhaps too much. I mean, perhaps by focusing on that, it's maybe it's actually kind of distorted. Maybe we should talk about market-based economics. But really, that's what I mean when I say capitalism. I mean market-based economics. Capitalism rolls off the tongue more easily. But so, point is, whatever you call it. That's just freedom. It's actually, you know, so it's ironic that you use that analogy, Jamin, of the Stockholm syndrome, because this is like capitalism is the most freedom you can possibly have. It's everything else that tries to restrict that freedom. So, and it's as free as evolution. We all are both, you know, endowed and tormented by, you know, whatever evolution gave us, and we're still subject to it. We have to live within that framework. You can't do away with it. Even when you understand evolution, you're still subject to evolution. That's all a part of that. So you can't really fight capitalism or market-based economics. You know, if you try to fight it, you simply just create a black market. So, and then it just gets uglier. So it's just like, yeah, it's impossible to fight it. You only mess things up. The best that you can do is to understand it and to create the most comfortable life. Same as with evolution. You understand some organisms will probably not reproduce and they will die out. But the point is that they might die out, but they don't necessarily die early of starvation. They at least get to live out the rest of their life somewhat comfortably without necessarily passing their genes. That's the difference. That's how you make evolution more, let's say, compassionate, and you can make capitalism more compassionate also. But yeah, you can't fight it. If you fight it, you just lose, and then it turns against you. That's just foolish. So again, but that's a much longer talk to explain how and why capitalism works so beautifully. I do recommend actually reading Adam Smith. When I first started reading The Wealth of Nations, I was considered myself a communist, and when I read that book, I actually cried because of how beautiful it was. Because it's actually, I mean, it showed me how ignorant I was the whole freaking time, and yeah, so I highly recommend The Wealth of Nations. And the interesting thing too, Adam Smith was an ethical philosopher, and so and the same thing with myself. I consider myself an ethical philosopher, and we both have that same appreciation. So, but yeah, so he wrote that book because of how he was, I think, moved by actually, I forgot what his motivations were. But yeah, so he was certainly concerned with the ethical situation and the plight of the working class. But he was actually making a point about how capitalism does work for the workers. That's all I got.
Awesome. All right. Well, James raised his hand, and then Shankar. James, go for it. If it's
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, I see where you're coming from, Cesare, and it is like in that sense, it is a form of freedom in the sense that it gives everybody a chance to express themselves and and earn a living, so to speak. In an ideal world, it would be earn a living through expressing ourselves, and I think that's what we're trying to reach out. I think on this platform, and is a kind of an ideal kind of a situation for everyone. But it is a form of freedom. But I agree then as well with what Jamin is saying as well. You see, because that's where I'm coming from as well. Is that what we need to curtail then is the freedom to accumulate wealth. You know what I mean? Like it's great to be able to earn a living, and it's great to be able to have the things you want. But you can only have so much in life anyway, as it is. Like, so there should be a tap on it, so to speak. I don't know what way you could do it. There should be. I'm not making rules up now or anything, but like, it's great to be able to earn a living and have your own independence and everything else like that. And that's where the capitalism gives you freedom, or for lack of a better word there, what you were using, gives people the freedom. But it should be not giving them the freedom to accumulate wealth, and therefore, end up subjecting others to less. I don't know.
See, I agree. I disagree with your anticipated solution to the problem, because I think that the right question to ask is, how do we make capitalism work for everyone, or how do we make it work more for people who are disadvantaged in the current situation? I think that's the question we need to be asking, not how do we get the rich to have less. I mean, I think that's actually just a terrible question to ask. So anyways, we can definitely explore that. How do we make capitalism work for everyone? I'd be very happy to explore that with you. Actually, those are the ideas that I explore in my ideological profile in Igora. I think I have several ideas that actually make capitalism work for more people, if not for everyone. But yeah, but my philosophy, it's not about how do I take, see, because the thing is, we don't want to be motivated by jealousy. That's a terrible motive. And so, because you know what, maybe for some people, people should have the freedom to pursue their own happiness. And for some people, if that's traveling the world and seeing, seeing all the different countries, maybe somebody wants to see every country and every place in the world. Well, that's what makes them happy. And for some other people, it's to make more money and just to have more money and keep making more money. That's what makes them happy. That's their freedom. The point is that by them making money, it's still working for others. Yeah, and so that can be done. But just like how you wouldn't restrict somebody who wants to, I want to travel to all the countries in the world, you wouldn't tell them, no, you only get to travel to half of the countries in the world. We're going to put a cap on how much traveling you can do. I mean, that's absurd. Or I don't know, or how many hobbies you can have. You're not going to do that to somebody. I mean, that's a total violation of their freedom. Same thing with, how many hours they can work and how many business deals they can make. That's a violation of their freedom or how much wealth they want to accumulate. That's a violation of their freedom. So again, the point is, how do you make it work for everyone? Don't be motivated by jealousy. That's not going to work. That's a bad way of approaching this problem.
So I'd like to take a quick poll and see how many people are interested.
I would just like to interject there a second, because I think Cesare misunderstood me anyway, first of all, because I wasn't asking the question about how do we take the money from the rich. I was saying that I agree with Jamin's part of the capitalism conversation we're having there about. It's about, I agree in the sense that it's about not hoarding again is our problem, and hoarding of money is our problem. The few hoarding and the many not having. That's the problem we have. Like, so, but like I said, it wasn't a question. I wasn't asking that question in a sense. And the jealousy side of it, to be honest with you, I have no problem with anyone who wants to earn and go off and do go on a holiday or go any part of the world as many times as they want, as far as I'm concerned. And I thought we, like, in the sense, and I know we all have that freedom in the sense that whatever our profession is or whatever, if we have the finances to have a 2-week holiday in a year, then we choose to go wherever we choose to go, depending on our finances, obviously. So I wouldn't take anyone's freedom away. I wasn't suggesting about taking anyone's freedom away. I'm suggesting that the conversation is about building a better form of capitalism for everybody. Obviously, that's the conversation here. Like, so how do you build a better form of capitalism for everybody is the question. And I think the root of that problem starts with children, and you know, it starts the root of any problem starts at the beginning, and all our problems are, in order to achieve any of our solve any of our problems, we have to begin it at the root, and that's with our children. So we need to basically set up a new set of system for education, for instance, instead of having a standard curriculum. You know, let the child have, we teach them to read, write, the mathematics, whatever. They're the standard subjects, but you ask the child what they want, and then you encourage it. You know, things like that. But I'm just saying, I agree with what you're saying, Cesare, and I agree with what Jamin is saying as well. In the sense, you're both right, but we're both, you know, I think we're banging heads here. I went on too much.
No, good stuff. Good stuff. I just wanted to interject what I'm experiencing, which is that it feels to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, everybody, but it feels to me like I think you know, everyone here is quite intelligent and well educated and pretty aware and whatnot. So I think we both kind of get the idea, right, of, you know, free market capitalism, right, with minimal constraints. We get the idea, and we also get the idea that there are other possibilities different from that, right? And I personally don't want to be, you know, sold on capitalism any more than I am, because that's, oh, hey, my mom's calling. I'm going to let you guys carry on. I'm going to talk to mom for a bit.
Well, it's 3 a.m. by me. I think it's bedtime. So, gentlemen, nice chatting with you. Again, I invite you to look at my political philosophy, look at my ideas. I think that's the most constructive way to approach it, is what do you actually stand for? So you'll find that in my ideological profile. Seriously, because I got some ideas in there. I think that I'm curious whether my ideas will actually answer or respond to a lot of your concerns about how economics works. Because this is so rich, and there are so many conversations that can be had and that should be had. And so try to just have one conversation at a time. Well, we can forget about these other conversations. But if we knew where we stand on these other positions, that would help us get the full picture, rather than just, you know, it's like trying to like look at a picture, like a painting, only like, you know, like linearly. You know, we got to look at the whole picture in 2 dimensions rather than 1 dimension. Like go down rather than just go down the, you know, like a 1 centimeter strip and scan it, you know, and like we don't do that. That's not how we appreciate a picture. We look at it all at once, and like that's the whole point of like the ideological profile, is so you can get a map of all the different ideas in someone's head, see how those ideas are connected, rather than to say, hey, here's one idea, and then you fight it out. But wait a minute, but there are other ideas that justify this idea, so you have to look at it holistically. So I invite you to check it out and see what you think about my ideas.
They're well written.
What's that?
I said they're well written. I was just giving. I am also recommending you check out Cesare's work. It's good stuff.
I'm looking forward to us having a conversation about these ideas, Nolan. So, yeah, the sooner the better.
Yeah, this conversation has been super juicy for me. Like one of my favorite conversations we've had. I mean, it's a big conversation, so my brain likes it. So, thank you for being here to have it.
Hey, you guys! I got my mom on speakerphone. Mom, you want to say hello to the guys? Yeah, that's Mom.
I am.
Yeah.
See? So let's see. How does it go?
Anyway. Yep, Mom. Okay. I think they hung up. My mom has memory issues. Oh, you taking off, Cesare? Great hanging with you, Cesare. Yeah. Get some sleep, and when you wake up, you know where to go. We'll be here. We'll have solved most of the world's problems by then.
Yeah, most likely.
And one last thought. Why are we able to do all this cool stuff through video conferencing? Because it was profitable for Zoom to make such a system. Okay.
Hell yeah! I wish I could be investing in Zoom right now. But yeah, I'll see you guys.
All right. Great to see you, Cesare. See you soon.
You know what's funny? I just have to observe something. Because when he was giving the description of, you know, like a scan of the sliver of the picture, isn't that money? If you're just trying to make more money, that is like the sliver of the whole picture, you know? I don't know. I'm not trying to say money is unnecessary or necessarily evil. I don't know. It's a good conversation.
It's all going digital pretty soon.
And what's funny is, right as you were saying that, I was thinking, like, when we take something and assign a dollar amount to it, we're just doing that for convenience sake, as a way of quantifying something, and we're reducing it for convenience sake. But it's interesting to me how we can, I don't know, I almost see replacing money with like imagine that you could simulate the universe and it was guaranteed that whatever you tested out on the simulation, like you want to explore a certain path, whatever you're shown, that's what's going to happen if it's a true simulation of the universe. And so why would, if you have like a model of everything that's running, what would be the point of exploring a universe where the amount of money is the greatest, you know, right? Or or your amount of money is the greatest, rather than like, I don't know how to put this. I'm just trying to say the more we simulate things, the less we're going to need money to like reduce something to a particular value, because the ripple effects of actions and our overall awareness of our actions is going to be, I don't know. I feel like money was this necessary thing we had to use when like nobody could be on the same page ever because we didn't have the technology to do that. Now, anyone could be watching me right now, like my experience or our experience. And I don't know how to articulate this yet.
I have a question or probably a comment.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I see it as there is a lot of relative problems because I cannot even talk about absolute. The reason is it's an ideology. Nothing will work. Like at an ideological level, it all will work because everything has to be level 2 for an ideology to work, and that's a utopian concept. Yet there is a lot of disparity. For example, I grew up in a mixed economy. Like growing up in India, I've seen the core of capitalism. I've seen the core of socialism, communism, everything, like cooperative movement, gift economy, because the population is like 1.2 billion, and it's a mixed economy, so you have all the freedom to do whatever you want. So you go to a particular sector, they are fully cooperative. That's all. They operate like a cooperative. The other one, they operate totally on a socialistic basis. The other one totally operate on a communist basis. And you have to see the mechanisms beyond currency too. So currency is not the only factor, because at the end of the day, money is just a price tag. It's a tag, that's all. I'll give you an example. How what I mean to try to say here is you can do things without capital. And people don't want to know that. Very dangerous. It's very dangerous for them because you lose your individuality. And people who come from the reason why I told a relative concept or relative issue is, if I'm coming from a really, really socialistic, communistic country, I won't like the socialistic concept or anything. Capitalism is my solution. But if I come from a very hardcore capitalism, I will say, this is not working. So it's a very relative concept. Everything has a problems and benefits. That's why I like the mixed economy. It's a hybrid. And you relatively alter the curve where it works for what. And it has to be balanced by something. I know if I talk to a capitalist, he will say capitalist is the most awesome thing. Capitalism is the awesome thing, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And to work, the blame would be like, you allow me to work, it'll work. I can say the same for socialism. You allow me to work, it'll work. Basically, they're asking in utopian world. It will never happen. So what we can do is we can just level them up. That's why there is a government intervention. People don't like it. Capitalism, they don't like it. See, this is like saying, like your parents have made some effort to raise you, okay? So when they raise you, you cannot just celebrate your talent. Those your ignorant and innocent days, they helped you. So we just need to have a gratitude in some way for that. And if we ignore that and say, no, I just came in this world, I'm brilliant right from the day one. And I'm by myself, it's all me, I'm a self-made by myself. That is saying something like that. Like we all know the ignorant and innocent days of us. Somebody took care of us. Today whom we are, because of those days, they took care of us. So like that, the economy and the society takes care of you. Then there is no point in celebrating it's my effort, my effort, my effort. It's always a coordinated effort. And they get very possessive, especially if you really come from a socialistic or you come from a really communist background. You need that freedom. You are for that freedom. So and you are like, capitalism is because you're getting that freedom. Like you're getting to what to do, and you've been like, this is like a, if you ever grow in a very conservative joint family, you got to really work for your family. Your needs are not met. There is no freedom for you. Taking care of your family, your parents, or your brothers and sisters is your thing. Especially if you're an elder brother, you got to take care of your younger brother or younger sister. Or if you're an elder sister, you got to take care of your younger sister or your brother. So pretty much that first person has lost the freedom. The first sibling or lost the freedom. Whereas the person who definitely would say, next, if I am having a birth, I want to be born in a family where I'm just alone. I don't want brothers, I don't want sisters, anybody. Because I'm not working for them and they don't understand me. Like whatever I do, they don't recognize me, they don't appreciate me. So people might feel it when they feel it. But the problem also in capitalism, another one is that equitable distribution never happens. So the way I can say is, one thing I like about capitalism is I'm a mixed economy person. So I've kind of seen there's no one answer. I'm not buying socialism. I'm not buying communism. I'm not buying capitalism too. They all work in tandem or in combination. And we need a policy which understands who is dominating what and how things has to be balanced. And it's a behavior. People are not gonna, people will say, you give a good knife, but the knife is in a murderer's hand. So now the problem is to fix the murder. But the next time when you give a good doctor, he has a very blunt knife. Operation cannot be success. So it's a problem. It's a changing dynamic problem. So there is no point in it. That's why. And then you're saying, you don't be a murderer. You be a doctor. I'll give you a wonderful knife. And that's utopian concept never happens. So it's always, you have to understand, it's neither 0 nor 100. We have to relatively oscillate and the problems up and down. Then one more part about the equitable distribution is, I'll give you an example of this, okay? I'm a very, very, very rich guy, okay? I will take my own cruise ship just by myself, and I'm going into the Caribbean something or wherever. Still in capitalism, what I will do is how I'm taking care of the economy is, even though I'm rich, I'm like wasting my money. I still need people for me to do that. To build a ship, I need people. So those shipping communities are getting benefited. Those people who make furniture within those ships or the crews, they are getting benefited. I know cruise is not a best example right now. just kidding. But you see the point, like I'm not making those ships. When I make those cruise, some families working there, they in the shipyard or dockyard, they are just working and they are building it. So for my greediness, I'm really doing some economy. Economy is kicking in. The problem is, but it doesn't do that evenly as we think. Theoretically, they believe that, oh yeah, just because of my greediness, still people benefit. Because why? I'm greedy. I am building this cruise ship. Who is getting benefited? All these people are getting benefited. So in some form, they are also getting a livelihood. So the capitalism works. They call divisions of fourth thing they call as a capital, labor, the land, then the one more item I forgot, something like rent or something. Some 4 factors of production they call. So everything works. But if you really see, it doesn't distribute that equitable, because if it distributes equitable, I won't be worried about accumulating wealth for my generation. Like for me, enough is never enough. Like there is never a distaste. I keep accumulating because I'm worried, am I going to lose my 6th car? I'm really worried. It doesn't give me sleep because I'm worried somebody's going to damage my 6th car. And the guy who doesn't have a car is so happy. And the guy who has the 6 cars is worried about his 6th car. So that's the state of mind. So and when a person doesn't have a car and one person has all the 6 cars, he justifies, my hard work. It's your problem. It's your foolishness. You're not getting. But the other way people are saying is, you are entitled for your effort, but the resources that you took is a common resource. It's one world. You're taking from a common pond. Your greediness is fine. See, that point, they never get it. And especially if somebody is really coming from a socialism and communism background, they are like, the taste of freedom is so much for them, they're not gonna listen. So I'm just if you're able to see the dimensions, what I'm saying. Okay.
Absolutely. I really appreciate what you've been saying. Like this whole conversation today has been very stimulating.
Actually, the one more point I want to add. This is what economics amazes me. Okay, where it amazes me is like when I grew up. I'll tell you the simple point I'm telling you. Like this GDP, GNP never fascinates me, because the reason is very simple. When I grew up, I'm giving one personal example to see things in a different scale. That's all. I'm not saying I saw the economy. I'm not saying in that way. I'm just trying to relate and scale it up. My mom used to come late from the office, a few hours late. I come earlier from school. So until that time, I go and stay in my neighbor's house. And they give me even dinner or snack or something. And this is what it is. Very simple, okay? But think in this way. If I am doing the same in US, there will be one nanny LLC, daycare LLC, and they are taking care of somebody and they're charging some money. So the point what people are missing is, people where they get fascinated is, look at that LLC has filed the tax return. Look at that. Do you see they made in a year some 20,000? But what they're missing is, hey, somebody took care of somebody. Don't miss that part. So most of the time when economists measure, they just want to pass the water through that measuring pipe. That's all. Do you see what I say? You know, there is a pipe which can measure water, how much water is going through. Have you guys seen a meter which can tell you how much water is going in you can take that out, still water is going. Okay, I know you are measuring, but there are places where things are happening. People, for example, India, I can take 1.2 billion people. You whether you measure or not, things are happening. Somebody's getting fed, somebody's making their livelihood, somebody's is wearing something, and somebody is like having a life and being happy. So that there is a lot of intrinsic aspect to that. So when you really see that part, it really doesn't matter whether you put a price tag or not. And there are people who need to put a price tag because of the capitalism. So when you really take the focus to that exchange of service, it is happening. So it's a very simple, you can call it as a gift economy, or you can call it as a cash flow economy, who cares? Yeah, thank you.
Well, I have something to add, if I may. I know I missed out chunks of the conversation, but I can sort of fill in the blanks because I've actually I spent a significant amount of time in my teens, 20s, and 30s thinking about all these topics and really, really trying to make sense of it all. And I feel like I have a reasonably good picture. And it's sort of a synthesis of your very last point, that regardless of what you measure or not, all this stuff's happening. Okay, great. A lot of stuff's happening. And what's happening is that the wealthiest people are buying and owning more and more and more and more, right? And the poorest of the poor are getting crammed into the tinier and tinier ghettos and townships, right? And that is a result of hoarding and this whole culture of hoarding, right? Regardless of whether there's paper money changing hands or plastic money or any kind of money, right? The rich are getting richer and taking more and more and more, and the poor are getting less and less and less, and either starving to death or dying of disease from malnutrition, but, living an absolutely miserable existence until they die. Okay. And yes, there are all these beautiful stories. Cesare was telling these stories about how beautiful capitalism is and freedom and all this kind of stuff, and telling other stories that, like, if you're anti-capitalism, it's because you suffer from jealousy. These are all stories, right? These are all, and what are in this case, the stories are attempted to be used as a tool, right, to convince people that capitalism is some great thing, or just free market capitalism is a great thing. And it is true that free market capitalism has been a lubricant for concentrating resources behind specific initiatives, but is that the only way to make those advances, right? Notably, for decades, there's been like sustained technological progress and evolution, even when the Soviet Union was a communist country, right? They invested resources and they produced amazing stuff, like the MiG fighter jets, right? The Soviet space program, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not like, you need capitalism in order to have innovation. That's total bullshit. And there are so many things wrong with Soviet-style communism. I don't know where to begin, but it was just wrong no matter how you slice it. So I am not holding that up as some example of what I want for the world. No, absolutely not. But all I'm doing is bashing free market capitalism at this point. Runaway hoarding, the system of runaway hoarding. Because it has literally, among other things, it has led us to this omnicidal brink where we literally might be dead, you know, in short order, right? Because of the exponentially overheating world. So while we're arguing about whether master is good or master is bad, master is squeezing on the trigger, trying to blow our heads off, right? But the trigger is stuck, and the master's like hitting the gun, dang it, and it's pointing and pulling. We're almost dead, and we're arguing about whether master is good or master is bad. Anyone who is trying to blow our heads off is bad. Period. Okay? This system is wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Okay. You know, amidst the greatest Holocaust in history, was beautiful poetry written? Yes, beautiful poetry was written. But it wasn't thanks to the Holocaust. A lot of great things have happened in the world, but don't give the credit to free market capitalism. That's just, oh my God. That's like crediting the fact that I was born, giving the credit to the oil company that produced the lubricant, that lubricated the joints, that made it so that lubricated the trip so that my dad could take my mom to the hospital so that I could be born there. Thank you, Standard Oil. Don't give all the credit to the lubricant. I'm here because of Standard Oil. I was born because of Standard Oil. I'm alive today because, what? So anyway, I've thought a buttload about this to the point that, like, I'm really glad my mom called when she called. Let's put it that way. I don't think I could have taken much more of it. And so, yes, I know all the stories. I know all the stories. And some of the stories are so beautiful, they make you cry. When my captor in the Stockholm Syndrome gives me a cupcake on a Saturday night, after doing you know what to me, you know where, it's such a sweet gesture that he gives me a cupcake. It makes me cry. Anyway, bottom line, I've given it so much thought, and I've had deep conversations with my dad over the decades about all this. So I'm just done. The system as it is sucks. You know, what part of, we're almost dead. Master is just squeezing at the rusty trigger, just wanting to blow our brains off and be done with it. And we're arguing about whether master is good or bad. Master is bad, right? It's over. What do you need your brains blown out all over the breakfast table in order to get that master is? Do you need that final piece of evidence, or do you see the pattern here? And are you ready to, you know? I mean, it's just like, my God. But again, it's a bigger hyper object than just capitalism, right? To Cesari's credit, it's like fire. It's fire. It's the use of fire. It's the fact that we don't have the jubilees or the debt forgiveness. It's the fact that we. It's a whole buttload of things rolled up into one. But what is the essence of this bad thing? The essence of it is simple: runaway hoarding, separation, ego, power tripping, dominance, dominion, more for me, less for you.
It's like let me first accumulate, then I will do the charity.
Yeah, and the charity just be, oh God, don't get me started. I'm all set to puke. Anyway, bottom line, I think we have, do your thinking. Everyone has to do their own thinking. I can't say, hey, listen, I did decades of thinking and here's what I came to. Everybody do your own thinking on this, right? I love what Emery just wrote. Nothing left over. That's exactly it. Take capitalism to its conclusion, and we almost got there. By the way, this damn coronavirus has stopped us from taking it to its logical. We almost took it to its logical conclusion, where everything is burnt up, everything is melted, and Jeff Bezos has a number with a whole bunch of zeros behind it in his bank account. Yeah, I bet when all complex life is dead and gone, somewhere there will still be a safe, right? A really expensive safe that Jeff Bezos had made. And in that safe is a piece of paper that shows how many dollars are in his bank account. Amidst just a total desert, scorched earth, radiation everywhere, no complex life left. I don't know, maybe there's just a few coronaviruses that have morphed into something even more despicable, and they're getting into the crevices of the rocks and underneath the ocean. I don't know what, but it ain't going to be the beautiful, rich, complex life that we know today, right? And the culprit is this whole system of which capitalism is a facet, right? This philosophy of separation is a facet. Violence is a facet. Our carnivorous diet is a facet. Lying is a facet. Exploitation is a facet. There's a whole bunch of facets. The whole hyperobject is screwed, right? So, but capitalism is definitely one of the members of that motorcycle gang that beat that woman to death on Saturday night. Capitalism was there. It was not there. It was definitely there. And it took its swings of the bat. Make no mistake. Emery, you've been very patient. And I'll just one last thing. So to try to separate it out is, oh, well, capitalism and freedom. I mean, that's like looking at the patient who's almost dead and the surgeon cutting open a cancerous tumor and a kindergartner coming along and pushing on the squishy, pussy, pink cancerous tumor and saying, ooh, that's kind of cute. It's squishy. I like it. These zero-dimensional stories about freedom. These are all stories. Storytellers have been telling stories for hundreds of thousands of years. This is yet another story, except this one's used as a tool. A tool to either it's a tool to fucking justify the Stockholm Syndrome relationship that we have with Master while Master is killing us. First slowly and then all at once. All right, now I'll shut up. Emery, go for it, buddy.
I just had something quick to chime in on. David there. I don't know if you know him or if you've heard of him, but he's a mega rich guy. Brilliant technologist. They're brilliant. Anyway, he recently said that the top 1%, they're the extraordinarily very, very, very rich there. The ones with the trillions, supposedly. And well, they've kind of split. They split into two sides. One side, they're gonna hang on to their trillions, and the other side, that they're gonna put the trillions back to good use for humanity, for us peeps. So that's what I heard recently. He chimed in on that. I have got a Wakelet collection on him with that his latest video where he was talking about that. I can leave a link in the chat.
Can I make a metaphorical comparison to that? Oh, okay. Let me make a quick metaphorical comparison. And warning, this is not suitable for kids, okay? That's like saying, I'm going to take all the world's rapists, and I'm going to divide them into two groups. They're the rapists who just fuck their victims. And then there are the rapists who kiss them before they fuck them. Isn't that sweet? Back to you, James.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Yeah, you threw me a bit there. That was some analogy. Yeah, look, like, I mean, at the end of the day, like, I'm just responding to what Emery said. It'd be nice to think that was the case, Emery. And I genuinely mean that. It would be nice to think that, like, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's like Jim just said there, like, I don't know, I'm after getting thrown there. Sorry, no, I'll come back with it again. It'll come back.
So again, these appeasing stories for me are worthless. Absolutely worthless. Okay, the cancerous tumor is squishy and cute. It's what's killing your mother, dude. It's not squishy and cute. It's cancer. I'm not talking to anyone in particular. I'm talking to the metaphorical kid who's pushing on the cancerous tumor. I mean, I'm not sorry for the gross stories. It's time that we got out of this freaking waste of precious minutes and hours of opportunity that we have to actually redesign reality. We're wasting time, you guys, talking about a system that is just wrong, no matter how you slice it. And we're having these idiotic story fests. Sorry, not idiotic, but pointless story fests, which maybe sound interesting to the uninitiated, right? And but I'm just wondering how much we really want to spend in terms of additional time on this. I feel like the salient points have been made. If anyone, let me put it this way: if anyone has any questions, please ask them, and I guarantee you've got sufficient expertise here in the room to answer your questions. If you have questions, ask away. But I'd like to take a vote on my proposal is that we not invest, to be PC about it, that we not invest any additional time in telling stories about how capitalism is a great thing for freedom and people who don't like it are jealous and that some billionaires are nice. I just would like to put that up to a vote. So if you agree with me to have a moratorium on such stories, and and I'll just be very clear when someone's offering up such a story, I'll be very clear to identify it as such. But I mean, there won't be any like penalty for accidentally telling one of those stories. But I just think it'd be useful to, I mean, it's just like,
Well, Jamin, I mentioned him. I mentioned him because Nolan was talking about magnetic containment there before, and it just happens to be David. There's technology that's all about, and it so happens that he's got the mega trillions, so.
No, I understand how you got there. I get it. And my proposal to the group stands. It's not to judge or criticize any of the stories that have been told in the last hour or two or whatever, but it's just to say, all right, that was, that's enough. That's my proposal. In terms of stories to, defend capitalism or billionaires or any of that stuff. I just think we've had enough of that. And then I think, people want to sleep on it, think about it, ask questions, because the reality is it is a very big topic, right? And but I mean, it's just starting to feel like, you know, economics 101, right? Where we could just talk for hours about it and even debate for hours about it. But I just feel like the evidence is so crazy clear, right? That we need radical transformation. That what I'd rather do is not question whether the system that brought us here, that got us here, is good or bad. I think that's just a waste of time to have that conversation. What I really like to talk about is designing the future. That for me is just infinitely more interesting and productive.
Yeah, but designing the future, Jamin, we gotta use some of the tools that we're left with, you know.
No, I totally get it. And I wasn't saying let's not use capitalism as a tool. I was just saying let's have a moratorium on these stories that you know, defend capitalism and billionaires. That's all I'm proposing, because those are just particular. I mean, I just feel like I want to vomit. It's like trying to eat, you know, the cheapest manufactured pink glazed donut you can imagine. I just want to vomit. I actually ordered a funnel cake at the county fair this last. Wait a second. Was it this last summer? Yeah, I think it was this last summer. I wanted to get a funnel cake. We ordered a damn funnel cake, and Melissa and I were both sick. It was just disgusting, right? For me, those stories are like disgusting funnel cake. There is just nothing redeemable to come out of them, because they're basically misinformation, right? And they're oversimplified misinformation at the end of the day. But even if they were true, like, whatever, we need to redesign. Let's redesign and let's use all the tools we have. I'm just saying, can we please have a moratorium on stories that defend capitalism or billionaires? Please, at least for today. That's my proposal. Anyway, it doesn't look like I'm getting a heck of a lot of support, unless we just take a vote. Let's take a vote now, shall we? Do you support my proposal? Thumb up. Are you against my proposal? Thumb down. All right. Nolan's sideways. Very good. Emery's thumbs up. Shankar's thumbs up.
Jamin.
Yeah?
Jamin, it's you're the leader, man. I support you, man. I trust you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I suppose the conversation was petering out anyway, because we weren't going to get anywhere with it. So I support it in that sense. But I respect everybody's input. That's all I want to say anyway. You know what I mean? We all obviously have our own views and come from different places. So at least we're respecting each other's input. But it is time to end that conversation, right? I think, because we could go around in circles.
Well, I'm still thinking about Cesare. So.
Well, he's gone to sleep anyway, and he's a wise man. He went an hour before me, I'd say. I don't even know what time it is now, because my clock is on my phone. So I'm gonna go take a nap for a couple of hours myself, and I'll get back to you like early in the morning.
Awesome. Awesome, James. Thank you.
No bothers. Take care. And I enjoy the conversation with everyone anyway, so thanks for that.
How's Stephanie doing? Okay?
She's good. She's good. Yeah, she's good. Sorry, we missed out on the Tuesday's Solution Club because, well, to be honest with you, she was only able to manage to get down to me here in Cork on Tuesday, you know, before everything gets locked down here, really, I suppose, when people are still moving about, but everybody's staying in and everything. So she just had the opportunity to get down. So we had the day on Tuesday and we got completely distracted and completely forgot about it. So I apologize for that. But yeah, she's good. She's watching there on YouTube, the live stream there all evening anyway, as far as I know, and since today, like, so she's just getting on with other stuff at home as well at the moment. So
Developing some videos.
yeah, she, as far as I know, she's working on that project anyway for the club here, or for the
Right.
collective. Go on anyway. I'm getting tired and babbling on all too long. Good night to you all, and I'll see you early in the morning.
And hey, James, no need to apologize, brother. And I'm really glad you had just downtime with Stephanie. That's so cool. So no worries. This is not a prison. This is not a jail sentence. Sorry, really bad analogy, but you get my point. Anyway, love you, brother. Have a
You too.
sleep, and we'll see you in a bit.
Yeah.
All right, man. Take care.
Yeah.
Good night, y'all. Good night, y'all. Good night.
Have
I
a good
also have to go. Okay. Yeah, I'll join in the morning. Yeah.
what?
All right.
Shankar?
Yeah, I'll join in the morning. I have a couple of calls to make. Yeah.
Oh, sure. All right. Well, we'll see you in the morning then.
Yes.
All right. Have a good night, Shankar. Take care. Yeah.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Take care, Shankar. I'll talk to you
Good stuff.
again sometime. Take care.
See you, Emre. See you, Nolan. See you, James. See you.
All right. See you soon.
Yes.
Get easy.
I'm going to stay tuned in, but I'm going to I'm still going to go to sleep, but I'll be listening in my subliminally.
I like that.
Subliminally. That's cool.
That's my line.
And Oswald, welcome back, Oswald. Woo! Now we're talking. When we get into the early hours of the morning, like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., I get so kind of tired and in such a weird state that I don't think I remember stuff so well. So, Oswald, were you on a week ago, or was it 2 weeks ago that we had that awesome back and forth? It kind of feels like it might have been 2 weeks ago. Nolan, do you have any recollection? Remember when Oswald just kept dropping all this brilliant stuff? 2 weeks ago. Okay. All right. Sounds about right. Anyway, really great to have you here, Oswald. And it's just so cool to be, to read your stuff whenever inspiration strikes there in Oregon. Yeah. So welcome back. Welcome back.
There's a song.
Yeah, let me play the song. I got to play it. In fact, when I was doing my Darth Vader routine at the University of Washington, in between me serenading the students, if I'd take a lunch break or something like that, I would play this. This was one of the songs that I would play. Okay.
Hey, Jamin,
Yo.
before you play it,
Yeah.
would you be cool with starting a new recording?
Yeah, no problem. Let me do that right now. Stopping recording.